The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Commander Daeho Kim walked through them with his head held high. His black uniform was clean and pressed. His boots clicked against the smooth crystal floor. Behind him walked Dr. Mi-young Park and Engineer Tae-min Lee. All three humans looked small in the huge chamber. The chamber was bigger than any building on Earth. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into darkness. Strange lights floated in the air like tiny stars. The walls were made of some kind of living crystal that changed colors as the aliens moved around. Hundreds of alien beings filled the chamber. Some looked like giant lizards with silver scales. Others were tall and thin like moving shadows. Some glowed with soft blue light. A few looked almost human, but their skin was purple or green. They all stared at the three humans with cold eyes. Commander, Daeho had been to this place before. He had come here 5 years ago when Earth first joined the Galactic Council. Back then, the aliens had seemed curious about humans. They asked many questions about Earth and human ways. Now their questions were very different. The High Judge was a creature called Vorthak. He was 12 feet tall with dark red scales and 6 arms. His voice was deep and rumbling like rocks falling down a mountain. When he spoke, all other sounds in the chamber stopped. "The human species will now hear the judgment of this council," Vorthak said. His yellow eyes looked down at the three humans. "You have been found guilty of being too dangerous for civilized space." Dr. Mi-young Park stepped forward. She was a small woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She had spent her whole life studying alien life forms. She loved learning about different species and their ways of living. Now she had to fight for her own species. "Honored Council," she said in a clear voice. "Humans have done nothing wrong. We have followed all the laws of the Galactic Union. We have shared our knowledge freely. We have helped other species when they asked for help. A tall alien that looked like a walking tree made a sound like wind through leaves. You call your wars helping? You call your weapons sharing knowledge?" "Every species has conflicts," Dr. Mi-young replied. "Humans learn from their mistakes. We stopped fighting each other when we reached the stars." "But you still carry weapons," said another alien. This one was covered in blue fur and had 4 eyes. "You still build warships. You still think like hunters and killers." Engineer Tae-min Lee was a quiet man who usually let others do the talking, but now he could not stay silent. "We build weapons to protect ourselves. We build warships to explore safely. Every species here has weapons too." "Not like yours," Vorthak rumbled. "Your weapons are made to kill. Your ships are made to fight. Your people think of war first and peace second." Commander Daeho felt anger building in his chest. He had spent 20 years in the Earth Defense Force. He had seen humans die protecting other species. He had seen human ships rescue alien civilians from pirates and disasters, but he kept his voice calm. "The Kree attack happened 6 months ago," he said. "Human ships were the first to respond. We saved 2 million Altarian civilians. We lost 50 human ships doing it. How is that being too dangerous?" "You destroyed the Kree fleet completely," said a floating alien that looked like a jellyfish, made of light. "You could have disabled their ships. You could have captured them. Instead, you chose to kill them all." "They were killing innocent people," Commander Daeho said. "They refused to surrender. They kept firing even when their ships were damaged. We did what we had to do." "And that is exactly the problem," Vorthak said. He stood up from his crystal throne. "Humans always do what they think they have to do. You do not ask permission. You do not wait for proper procedures. You act first and think about consequences later." Dr. Mi-young felt tears building in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "Is saving lives wrong? Is protecting the innocent wrong?" "The way you do it is wrong," said an alien that looked like a giant insect. "You are chaos bringers. Wherever humans go, the old ways change. The safe ways are forgotten. The careful ways are abandoned." "Change is not always bad," Dr. Mi-young said. "For humans maybe," Vorthak replied. "But the galaxy was peaceful before humans arrived. Wars were small and controlled. Trade was orderly. Laws were followed. Now there are revolutions on 12 worlds. Pirates use human weapons. Criminals copy human tactics." Engineer Tae-min shook his head. You cannot blame humans for everything that goes wrong in the galaxy. We can blame humans for making it worse, said the tree-like alien. Your species is like a virus. You spread and change everything you touch. Enough, Vorthak said. His voice echoed through the chamber. The judgment has been made. All humans in galactic space will be relocated to a world where they cannot harm others. What world? Commander Deho asked. The planet you call Kepler 442c, Vorthak replied. It is far from civilized space. It has no life. It has no resources anyone wants. It has harsh weather and dangerous conditions. You will be safe there from other species, and other species will be safe from you. Dr. Mi Young felt her heart sink. She knew about Kepler 442c. It was a dead world on the edge of known space. No ship had ever landed there successfully. The few probes sent there had been destroyed by the extreme conditions. That is not relocation, she said. That is execution. That is exile, Vorthak corrected. You will be given ships and basic supplies. What you do with them is your choice. How many ships? Commander Deho asked. Enough for all 50 million humans in galactic space, Vorthak said. The transport begins in 30 days. You have that long to prepare. Engineer Taman looked at his companions. They all knew what this meant. 50 million humans scattered across hundreds of worlds would be gathered up like criminals. They would be loaded onto ships and sent to a world that could not support life. This is wrong, Dr. Mi Young said. History will remember this as a great injustice. History is written by those who survive, Vorthak replied. The galaxy will be better without human chaos. The three humans were escorted from the chamber by robot guards. As they walked through the huge doors, Commander Deho looked back once. The aliens were already talking among themselves. They looked relieved, like people who had just solved a difficult problem. Outside the chamber, Dr. Mi Young finally let the tears fall. 50 million people, she whispered. How will we tell them? We tell them the truth, Commander Deho said. We tell them we have 30 days to prepare for the impossible. Engineer Taman was already thinking about the challenge ahead. Kepler 442c has no atmosphere. The temperature swings are extreme. The gravity is 30% higher than Earth normal. But it has minerals, Dr. Mi Young said quietly. And maybe, just maybe, it has possibilities we have not discovered yet. Commander Deho nodded. Then we better start planning. We have a dead world to bring to life. The massive transport ships hung in space like sleeping giants. 200 vessels carried 50 million humans toward their new home. Commander Deho Kim stood on the bridge of the lead ship watching the growing planet through the main screen. Kepler 442c looked like a ball of rust and fire. Landing conditions are worse than we thought, reported Captain Soo-Jin Choi from her station. She was a young pilot who had volunteered to lead the first landing team. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panels as data flowed in from the scout probes. How much worse? Commander Deho asked. Surface winds are hitting 400 kilometers per hour. The temperature on the day side is over 400 degrees. The night side drops to minus 180. And the storms... She paused and shook her head. The storms are like nothing we have ever seen. Dr. Mi Young Park looked up from her research station. She had spent the 3-month journey studying every piece of data about their new world. Her eyes were tired but determined. The gravity is definitely 30% higher than Earth. Our bodies will adapt, but it will take time. The real problem is the atmosphere. What atmosphere? Engineer Taemin Lee said from across the bridge. The probes show almost no breathable air. That is the problem, Dr. Mi Young replied. There is an atmosphere, but it is mostly carbon dioxide and sulfur compounds. We cannot breathe it, but it is thick enough to create those terrible storms. Commander Deho watched the planet grow larger on the screen. Red lightning flickered across its surface like angry spirits. Dark clouds swirled in patterns that hurt to look at. This was supposed to be humanity's new home. Sir, Captain Soo-Jin said quietly, I need to tell you something else. The probes we sent down 6 hours ago, we lost contact with all of them. Lost contact how? They just stopped transmitting. all at once, like something down there destroyed them. Engineer Taemin frowned. Equipment failure, maybe. Those storms could damage anything. Maybe, Captain Soo-jin said, but she did not sound convinced. The first landing attempt happened at dawn on the planet's northern continent. Captain Soo-jin led 20 volunteers in a heavily shielded shuttle. Commander Dae-ho watched from orbit as their ship disappeared into the swirling clouds. For 10 minutes, everything seemed normal. Captain Soo-jin reported strong winds but manageable conditions. Then her voice came through the radio, crackling with static. Commander, we have a problem. The ground here is not stable. It looks solid, but when we touched down, the landing gear started sinking. We are pulling back up now. What kind of ground instability? Dr. Mi-young asked into her microphone. It looks like rock, but it acts like thick mud. And sir, there are things moving under the surface. Commander Dae-ho felt his stomach tighten. What kind of things? I cannot tell. The sensors are going crazy. Wait, something is coming up through the ground near us. The radio filled with the sound of grinding metal and shouting voices. Then silence. Captain Soo-jin, respond please, Commander Dae-ho called. Nothing. Emergency beacon activated, reported the communications officer. They are alive, but the shuttle is damaged. It took 8 hours to rescue the landing team. When they finally got back to the transport ship, Captain Soo-jin looked like she had aged 10 years. Her face was pale and her hands shook slightly. The whole planet is alive, she told the emergency meeting. Not alive like plants and animals. Alive like one giant organism. When we landed, it reacted to us like we were some kind of infection. Doctor. Mi-young leaned forward. Explain what you mean by alive. The ground has a nervous system. I know how that sounds, but I saw it. When we put weight on the surface, ripples of light ran out from our ship like nerve signals. And things came up from below to investigate. What kind of things? Engineer Taemin asked. I do not know what to call them. They looked like worms, but they were made of the same rock mud as the ground. They touched our ship and it started dissolving. Commander, Dae-ho studied the images Captain Soo-jin had managed to record. The planet's surface did look strange. What appeared to be solid rock showed patterns like veins running through it, and in the recordings he could see things moving just below the surface. We lost 3 more shuttles over the next week trying to find a safe landing spot. Each time the same thing happened. The planet seemed to wake up when humans got close. The storms got worse. The ground became unstable. Strange formations appeared that had not been there before. Dr. Mi-young spent sleepless nights studying the IDR data. On the 8th day, she made a discovery that changed everything. The planet is not trying to kill us, she announced to the senior staff. It is trying to understand us. Explain, Commander Dae-ho said. Look at this data from the failed landings. Each time we touched down, the planet's reactions got more controlled, more precise. The first time, it was like a reflex. By the 4th landing, it was like curiosity. Engineer Taemin shook his head. You are saying the planet is intelligent? I am saying the planet has some kind of awareness. And I think it is learning about us. Learning what? That we are not trying to hurt it. Commander Dae-ho looked at the reports again. Dr. Mi-young was right. The planet's responses were becoming less violent and more exploratory, but they still could not land safely. What do you suggest we do? We try to communicate with it. Communicate? With a planet? Why not? If it can learn, it can probably understand simple concepts. We need to show it that we want to work together, not fight. The next landing attempt was different. Instead of heavily armed shuttles, they sent down a single small craft with no weapons. Instead of trying to land by force, they approached slowly and waited. Captain Soo-jin piloted the craft herself. She hovered 10 meters above the surface and used the ship's lights to flash simple patterns. 3 short flashes, then 3 long ones, then 3 short again. The old Earth distress signal. For an hour, nothing happened. Then ripples of light began moving across the ground below them. The same pattern. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. It is copying us, Captain Soo-jin reported with excitement in her voice. Dr. Mi-young was practically jumping up and down on the bridge. Try something else. Try counting. Captain Soo-jin flashed her lights once, then twice then, 3 times. The yow, ground responded with the same pattern. Then it flashed 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. It is continuing the sequence, Dr. Mi-young said. It understands counting. Over the following days, they established a basic communication system. The planet entity seemed eager to learn. It copied everything they showed it and tried to show them things in return. I think it has been alone for a very long time, Dr. Mi-young said. Maybe thousands of years. When we arrived, we were the first intelligence it had encountered. But what is it exactly? Commander Daeho asked. My best guess is that this planet used to have a normal ecosystem, plants, animals, maybe even a civilization. But something happened. A disaster, maybe. The life forms merged, somehow became one connected organism. The whole planet became a single living entity. And now it wants to help us? I think it wants companionship. It has been waiting for someone to talk to. The breakthrough came when Dr. Mi-young realized that the strange formations appearing on the surface were not random. They were shelters. The planet was trying to build houses for the humans. The first successful landing happened on day 15. Captain Sujin set her shuttle down in a sheltered valley, where the planet had grown crystal formations that blocked the wind. The ground stayed solid. The storms moved around them instead of through them. Welcome to Hell's Gate, Captain Sujin said as she stepped onto the surface. It was the nickname the humans had given their new home. But now it did not seem so hellish. Engineer Taemin was the first to figure out how to work with the planet's living systems. He discovered that the organism could reshape itself to create tools and buildings. All they had to do was show it what they needed. It is like having a construction crew made of the ground itself, he reported. We can build cities here, real cities. Dr. Mi-young made an even more important discovery. The soil was not dead. It was full of dormant microorganisms that were part of the planet's larger system. With the right treatment, they could be awakened and used to grow food. This world is not dead, she announced to the whole fleet. It is sleeping, and it is ready to wake up. Commander Daeho looked down at their new home. 50 million humans needed places to live and work and grow food. It seemed impossible. But humans had always been good at doing impossible things. All right, people, he announced over the fleet communications. Time to build a civilization. 3 years had passed since the first humans landed on Hell's Gate. What had once been a dead world now showed signs of incredible change. Dr. Mi-young Park stood on the observation deck of New Seoul, the first permanent human city, watching the sunrise paint the sky in colors that had never existed before. The sky was no longer the angry red it had been when they arrived. Now it showed streaks of blue and green as the planet's atmosphere slowly changed. The terrible storms still came, but they were smaller and more predictable. Most amazing of all, it rained now. Real water fell from the clouds for the first time in thousands of years. The atmospheric readings are incredible, said Dr. Mi-young to her assistant, a young woman named Bo-ra Han, who had been born on one of the transport ships during the journey to Hell's Gate. Oxygen levels have increased by 12% in just 6 months. Bo-ra looked up from her data tablet. She had grown up hearing stories about Earth, but Hell's Gate was the only home she had ever known. To her, the changing world was normal and exciting. The planet entity is working faster now. It seems more confident about what we need. Dr. Mi-young nodded. Communication with the planet had become much easier over the years. They had learned that it responded to emotions and intentions as much as to words and signals. When humans felt happy and grateful, the planet seemed to glow with satisfaction. When they were worried or afraid, it tried harder to help them. Dr. Park, came a voice from the communication system. Please report to Laboratory 7. We have something amazing to show you. Laboratory 7 was deep underground in the living rock that the planet had shaped for them. As Dr. Mi-young walked through the corridors, she marveled at how beautiful they had become. The walls were smooth and curved like the inside of a seashell. Soft light came from the rock itself, growing brighter when people approached and dimming when they left. In the laboratory, she found botanist Yoon Ji-yoon standing beside a table covered with plants that should not have been able to exist. Green vines covered with blue flowers grew from soil that had been lifeless 3 years ago. But these were not earth plants, or even plants like anything from Earth. "Look at this," Yoonji said with excitement in her voice. She was a small woman who had spent her whole career studying how to grow food in hostile environments. "These plants are hybrids, part earth biology and part something else. Something from this world's ancient past." Dr. Myung examined the plants closely. The leaves looked familiar, but the structure was different. The roots went deeper than earth plants and seemed to connect to each other in a network. "How is this possible?" "The planet has been storing genetic information for thousands of years," Yoonji explained. "When I planted earth seeds, the planet entity analyzed them and combined them with its own stored patterns. It created plants that can survive here, but still produce food we can eat. Are they safe?" "More than safe. They are perfect. The fruits have all the nutrients we need, plus minerals that help our bodies adapt to the higher gravity. The planet designed them specifically for human health." Dr. Myung felt tears in her eyes. For 3 years they had survived on stored food and carefully managed hydroponic gardens. Now they could grow real crops in the open air. "How many varieties?" 17 so far and more appearing every day. Rice that grows in the mineral soil. Vegetables that thrive in the strange light. Fruit trees that can survive the temperature swings. Yoonji picked up a blue apple-like fruit. "Try this." The fruit tasted like apples and strawberries mixed together, but with a richness that made Dr. Myung's mouth water. "It is delicious." "And look at this." Yoonji led her to another section of the laboratory. Here, engineer Taemin Lee was working, with agricultural specialist Hyunwoo Song on something that looked like a cross between a machine and a plant. "We call them biomechanical systems," Taemin explained. He was older now with gray in his hair, but his eyes still sparked with curiosity. "The planet can grow structures that work like machines but are alive. Living pipes that carry water, organic computers that help us manage the cities, building materials that repair themselves." Hyunwoo pointed to a wall that seemed to be breathing slowly. "This wall adjusts its thickness based on the weather outside. When storms come, it gets thicker and stronger. When the weather is calm, it becomes thinner to let more light through." "The planet is not just helping us survive," Dr. Myung realized. "It is teaching us a completely new way to live." Above ground, the city of New Seoul was growing every day. Architect Min-ho Park had designed buildings that looked like they grew from the ground itself. Curved towers reached toward the sky, while underground chambers provided shelter during the worst storms. Streets curved and flowed like rivers, following the natural patterns of the living rock. The most amazing sight was the central square, where a fountain flowed with clean water. Children played around it, laughing and splashing. These were the first generation of humans born on Hell's Gate. They were taller and stronger than their parents, adapted to the higher gravity. Their eyes were sharper, better able to see in the strange light of their world. One of these children was Na-young Lee, daughter of engineer Taemin Lee. At 10 years old, she was already taller than some adults from Earth. She could run and jump in ways that amazed the older humans. But more importantly, she could communicate with the planet entity in ways that others could not. "Na-young has a special connection," Taemin told Commander Daeho during one of their weekly meetings. "She can sense what the planet is feeling. Sometimes she knows about storms or changes before our instruments detect them." Commander Daeho watched the girl playing with her friends. She moved with a grace that seemed almost like dancing. When she touched the living walls, they glowed brighter. When she walked through the gardens, the plants seemed to turn toward her like flowers following the sun. "The children born here are different," he observed. "Adapted not just physically but mentally. They understand this world in ways we never will." "They are the future," Taemin agreed. "The bridge between humanity and whatever this planet wants to become." Meanwhile, Communications Officer Dong-hyun Choi had been busy with a dangerous secret project. Deep in the underground communication center, he maintained illegal contact with humans still living in civilized space. The Galactic Council had forbidden any communication with the exiled humans, but Dong-hyun had found ways around their restrictions. "The news from outside is not good," he reported to the senior staff. The Council is telling everyone that humanity died on Hell's Gate as expected, but some species are asking questions. They want to send observers to verify our extinction. Let them come, Commander Deho said. Let them see what we have built. It might not be observers they send, Donghyun warned. There are rumors of military preparations. Some council members are worried that humans might have survived and might be planning revenge. Dr. Mi-young laughed. Revenge? We are too busy building paradise to think about revenge, but Commander Deho looked serious. We need to be prepared. If the Council sends warships, we need to be able to defend ourselves. The planet will protect us, said Na-young Lee. She had been listening quietly in the corner. It told me so. The adults looked at the young girl with surprise. The planet told you? Dr. Mi-young asked. Not in words, Na-young explained. In feelings. It is not afraid of the ship people. It remembers when other ship people came here long ago. It survived. Them too. Other ship people? Commander Deho asked. What other ship people? The ones who lived here before? The ones who became part of the planet when the bad time came? Dr. Mi-young felt her heart racing. Na-young, are you saying there was a civilization here before us? Not was, is. They are still here in the deep places. They have been sleeping, but they are starting to wake up because we are here. Wake up how? Na-young smiled with the innocent confidence of a child who knows something adults do not understand. They want to meet us. They have been lonely too, just like the planet. They want to teach us things about the big dark and the lightbringers, and the coming bad time. Big dark? Lightbringers? Coming bad time? Taemin asked his daughter. I do not know all the words yet, Na-young said. But they will teach me. They will teach all of us. Because the ship people from the star places need to learn too, or the coming bad time will hurt everyone. Commander Deho exchanged glances with Dr. Mi-young. If Na-young was right, then Hell's Gate was not just a prison world. It was not even just a new home. It might be the key to something much bigger than anyone had imagined. How long before these sleeping ones wake up completely? He asked. Na-young tilted her head as if listening to something only she could hear. Soon. When the planet is ready. When we are ready. When the ship people come to see if we are dead. As if summoned by her words, Donghyun's communication equipment began beeping with an urgent signal. He listened to his headphones and his face went pale. Commander, he said quietly. Long-range sensors are detecting ships. Lots of ships. Heading this way. Commander Deho nodded grimly. How long until they arrive? 6 months. Maybe less. Then we better get ready to show the galaxy what humans can do when they are not alone. The small probe ship appeared at the edge of Hell's Gate system like a metal spider spinning through the darkness. Its mission was simple: confirm that the exiled humans were dead and report back to the Galactic Council. What it found instead would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Admiral Seo Jun-yang stood on the bridge of the human defense ship Harmony, watching the probe through his view screen. He was a tall man with silver hair who had once commanded Earth's largest battleships. Now he commanded something much stranger, a vessel that seemed to be part machine and part living creature. The probe is scanning the planet, reported Navigator Hanul Kim from her station. Her console was not made of metal and circuits like the old ships. Instead, it was grown from the same biomechanical material that made up their cities. Living. Crystals pulsed with information while organic fibers carried data faster than any cable. Let it scan, Admiral Seo Jun said calmly. Let them see what we have become. The probe's sensors swept across Hell's Gate and recorded impossible images. Where there should have been a dead rock floating in space, they found a blue-green world covered with cities and forests. Oceans sparkled under twin suns while clouds drifted across continents where millions of humans lived and worked. But the most shocking discovery was in orbit around the planet. Dozens of ships hung in space around Hell's Gate. They were clearly human in design, but unlike any ships the galaxy had ever seen. They moved like living things, changing shape as they flew. Their hulls seemed to breathe and pulse with inner light. Probe is transmitting data back to the Council, Hanul reported. Signal will reach them in approximately 4 hours. Admiral Seojun nodded. He had been preparing for this moment for 2 years. The humans of Hell's Gate knew that eventually the galaxy would come to check on them. They had used that time to prepare not for hiding, but for revelation. On the planet, below Dr. Mi-young Park stood in the great chamber deep beneath New Seoul. This was the heart of the planet entity, a vast cavern filled with living crystal formations that pulsed with soft light. But she was not alone. Around her stood figures that should not have existed. They called themselves the Architects, and they had once been the greatest civilization in the galaxy. Tall and graceful with silver skin and large dark eyes, they looked almost like humans, but moved with fluid grace that spoke of millennia of evolution. Their leader was an ancient being called K1, who had been sleeping for 10,000 years. "The probe has seen our work together," K1 said in a voice like distant music. "Soon the Council will know that death did not find the humans here." Dr. Mi-young still felt amazed every time she spoke with the Architects. 3 months ago, Na-young Lee had led the first human expedition into the deep places where the ancient beings had been sleeping. The awakening had been gradual, as the Architects slowly returned to consciousness after their long rest. "Why did you sleep for so long?" Dr. Mi-young asked. "Because we were waiting," K1 replied. "Our civilization grew too proud, too rigid. We tried to control everything in the galaxy, including life itself. When the great disaster came, we were not ready. We could not adapt. So we chose to sleep and wait for someone who could teach us flexibility again. And you think humans can teach you that? Humans have already taught us that. You took our dead world and made it live again. You took our ancient knowledge and made it new. You show us that survival comes not from control but from cooperation." Intelligence Officer Woo Seok. Kim had spent weeks learning the true history of the galaxy from the Architects. What he discovered changed everything humans thought they knew about their exile. The Galactic Council did not exile us because we were dangerous, he reported to Commander Daeho during an emergency meeting. They exiled us because we were the key to awakening the Architects, and the Council was terrified of what that would mean. "Explain," Commander Daeho said. "The Architects once ruled most of the galaxy. They created the hyperspace routes, the trade networks, even some of the species that sit on the Council today. When they went into their great sleep, the current powers took over. They have spent 10,000 years building their own empires on architect foundations. And they knew that humans could wake the Architects up? Some of them suspected. There are prophecies in the old records about a young species that would arrive from a distant world and awaken the sleeping masters. The descriptions matched humanity perfectly." Commander Daeho felt pieces of a vast puzzle clicking together in his mind. So our exile was not punishment. It was prevention. Exactly. By sending us to Hell's Gate, they thought they were removing the threat. Instead, they delivered us directly to the Architects. Meanwhile, the probe's data had reached the Galactic Council. In the great chamber where humans had once been sentenced to exile, chaos erupted as the alien leaders saw the impossible images from Hell's Gate. Vorthak, the reptilian high judge, stared at the recordings with his yellow eyes wide with shock. "This cannot be real. Humans cannot have survived on that dead world." "The data is confirmed," reported the Insectoid Council technician. "Multiple scans show the same results. Not only have humans survived, they have created an advanced civilization. And sir, there are energy readings that match ancient architect technology." The chamber fell silent. Every alien leader knew about the Architects. They were the stuff of legends and nightmares. The sleeping giants who had once commanded the galaxy and might someday return to reclaim it. "Impossible," whispered the blue-furred council member. "The Architects have been dead for 10,000 years. "Not dead," Vorthak said grimly. "Sleeping. And if the humans have awakened them..." "We must act quickly," declared the tree-like alien. "Send the war fleet immediately. Destroy Hell's Gate before this contamination can spread." "A war fleet against humans?" asked the floating jellyfish creature. "They are primitives, with stolen ships." "Those are not stolen ships," Vorthak said, studying the probe data more carefully. Those are architect vessels, biomechanical hybrids that we have never seen before. The humans have not just survived their exile, they have formed an alliance with the most powerful civilization in galactic history. Back on Hell's Gate, scientist Jihai Kang was making discoveries that would reshape galactic understanding of life itself. Working with architect knowledge, she had learned to read the genetic patterns stored in the planet's living memory. The architects did not just rule the galaxy, she explained to an assembly of human and architect leaders. They seeded it with life. Every habitable world, every species that evolved to intelligence, every form of life that thrives in space, all of it traces back to architect intervention millions of years ago. Including humans? Asked Dr. Mi Young. Especially humans. Earth was one of their last experiments before the Great Sleep. They were trying to create a species that could adapt to any environment and work with any form of life. When the disaster came, they never got to see if their experiment succeeded. Until now, added K1 with something like pride in his musical voice, humans have exceeded even our highest hopes. You do not just adapt to new environments, you improve them. You do not just work with other life forms, you awaken their highest potential. What was this great disaster? Commander Deho asked. What made you go to sleep? The architects exchanged glances that spoke of ancient pain. K1's expression grew sad. The Devourers, entities from the space between galaxies that consume not just matter and energy but life itself. They came once before and we barely stopped them. They will come again. When? Soon. The signs are already visible to those who know how to look. Dark spaces where stars have gone silent. Trade routes where ships disappear without trace. Worlds where all life simply ends. Admiral Seo Jun's voice came through the communication system with urgent news. Multiple ships detected at the system edge. Council war fleet arriving ahead of schedule. Estimate 200 vessels including dreadnoughts. Commander Deho looked around the chamber at humans and architects working together. After 10 years of exile and 3 years of building paradise, it seemed their time of peace was ending. How long until they arrive? He asked. 6 hours, Admiral Seo Jun replied. Are we ready for this fight? The planet is ready, said Na Young Lee from her place among the architect children. At 13, she had grown tall and graceful like her ancient teachers. The sleepers are awake. The ships are alive. The old knowledge is new again. K1 rose from his crystal throne, his silver skin gleaming with inner light. For 10,000 years we have slept while others ruled our galaxy with fear and rigid control. Now we wake to find our children among the stars have learned what we forgot. They remember that life grows strongest when it grows together. Commander Deho stood as well. Then let us show the galaxy what happens when humans and architects work as one. The chamber filled with light as every crystal formation pulsed, in harmony. On the surface, the biomechanical cities began to glow. In orbit, the living ships spread their wings like great birds preparing for flight. The second battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. But this time, humans would not fight alone. The Galactic Council warfleet emerged from hyperspace like a cloud of angry metal wasps. 200 ships spread across the dark between the stars, their weapons charged and ready to end the human problem forever. Admiral Vexka, a six-armed, reptilian commander, stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion watching Hell's Gate grow larger on his screens. Target analysis complete, reported his weapons officer. 17 human settlements detected on the planet's surface. 43 ships in orbit. All vessels appear to be using unknown technology. Unknown technology? Admiral Vexka hissed. Humans had barely learned to build hyperspace engines when we exiled them. What unknown technology could they possibly have? Sir, the ships appear to be alive. They are changing shape and emitting energy signatures we have never seen before. Admiral Vexka studied the tactical display. The human ships did look strange. They moved like fish swimming through water instead of metal boxes following predictable courses. Their hulls rippled and flowed. Some had what looked like wings that opened and closed. No matter, he decided. Humans with new toys are still just humans. Begin the attack. But Admiral Seojun Yang was ready for them. On the Bridge of Harmony, he watched the Council fleet approach with calm eyes. Around him, his crew worked at stations that seemed more like gardens than control panels. Living vines carried information through the ship, while crystalline displays showed tactical data in three-dimensional light. "All ships report ready," announced Navigator Han Yul Kim. "The planet defenses are active. Architect deep systems are online." "And our special surprise?" Admiral Seojun asked. "Ready and waiting," Han Yul smiled. The first Council ships opened fire at maximum range. Bright energy beams lanced through space toward the human vessels. But something impossible happened. The human ships simply flowed around the incoming fire like water flowing around rocks. The deadly beams passed harmlessly through empty space. "What just happened?" Admiral Vexka demanded. "The human ships, they shifted their physical structure. The beams passed through gaps that were not there a moment before." "Impossible. Ships cannot change their molecular structure." "These ships can, sir. The human counterattack came like nothing the Council had ever seen. Instead of energy weapons, the human ships released clouds of what looked like glowing seeds. The seeds drifted through space and attached themselves to Council ships. Within minutes, the alien vessels began to change. "Our hull is being converted," reported a panicked Council engineer. "The foreign material is restructuring our ship at the atomic level." Admiral Vexka watched in horror as his fleet began to transform. Council ships sprouted organic growths that looked like coral. Their rigid metal hulls became flexible and alive. Their weapons stopped working as the systems were integrated into new biological networks. "Fall back," he ordered. "Reform at safe distance." But it was too late. Half his fleet had already been converted. The transformed ships turned to face their former allies. But they did not attack. Instead, they broadcast a message on all frequencies. "We surrender," came the voice of Captain Mordun, commander of the converted dreadnought Liberation. "The humans are offering us something we never imagined. Partnership instead of domination. Growth instead of control. We accept." On Hell's Gate, Commander Dae-ho Kim stood in the great chamber watching the battle through the planet's living sensors. Beside him, K-1 and the other awakened architects observed with ancient eyes that had seen many wars. "Your conversion technology is working perfectly," K-1 observed. "The Council ships are being transformed but not destroyed. Their crews are unharmed but enlightened." "That was Dr. Mi Young's idea," Commander Dae-ho replied. "She said we should not fight the Council with violence. We should fight them with understanding." "And the crews are accepting the change?" "Most of them. When their ships become part of the biomechanical network, they experience what we experience. They feel the planet's consciousness. They understand what cooperation really means. But not all the Council ships were surrendering. Admiral Vexka rallied the remaining vessels for a desperate attack on the planet itself. "If we cannot defeat their fleet, we will destroy their world. Charge the planet crackers, target the planetary core." Planet crackers were the most terrible weapons in the galaxy. They could split a world in half and turn it into an asteroid field. Admiral Vexka had brought 3 of them specifically to make sure Hell's Gate could never threaten galactic order again. "Planet crackers locked on target," his weapons officer reported. "Fire." 3 beams of devastating energy lanced down toward Hell's Gate. Each beam carried enough power to destroy a continent. But as they touched the planet's atmosphere, something beautiful happened. The planet began to sing. The energy beams were absorbed into Hell's Gate's living systems and converted into pure harmony. The entire world glowed with soft light as the destructive power was transformed into creative force. Across the planet's surface, new forests sprouted and grew. New oceans formed in desert valleys. New mountains rose covered with crystal formations that chimed like bells in the wind. "The planet is using our weapons to make itself more beautiful," Admiral Vexka whispered in shock. On the surface, Na Young Lee stood with her hands pressed against one of the great crystal formations. At 16, she had become the primary link between humans, architects, and the planet consciousness. Through her, the world spoke to the galaxy. "People of the Council, Her voice was broadcast to every ship in the system. You came here to destroy us because you were afraid that change would end your power, afraid that cooperation would replace control. But look what we have built together. Look what life can become when it is free to grow. The remaining council ships found themselves surrounded not by enemies, but by wonders. Human architect vessels approached them slowly with their weapons, powered down. Each ship glowed with internal light and moved with graceful purpose. We offer you the same choice we offered your companions, Nayung continued. Join us and become more than you ever imagined, or leave and return to your rigid worlds. But know that the galaxy is changing. Know that the old ways of fear and division are ending. Admiral Vexka stared at his tactical display. Half his fleet had already joined the humans. The other half was confused and demoralized. The planet they had come to destroy was more beautiful than ever. And from deep space, his sensors were detecting something that made his blood freeze. Sir, his science officer reported with terror in his voice. Long-range scanners are detecting massive objects approaching from intergalactic space. Energy signatures match nothing in our databases. The Devourers, K1 said grimly in the great chamber on Hell's Gate. They have found us at last. On the main display, dark shapes appeared at the edge of the galaxy. They were enormous, larger than star systems, and they moved with purpose toward the inhabited worlds. Where they passed, stars dimmed and died. Whole solar systems simply ceased to exist. How long until they reach the core worlds? Commander Deho asked. 3 months, replied scientist Jihai Kang. Maybe less. They are moving faster than they did during the last invasion. Then we have 3 months to unite the galaxy. Admiral Vexka received the transmission from Hell's Gate with disbelief. The humans were offering to help defend the galaxy against the Devourers. The same humans his fleet had come to exterminate were now offering to save everyone. Why? He transmitted back. Why help us after what we did to you? Because that is what life does, Nayung replied. It helps other life survive and grow. Even life that has hurt it. The next week saw the most rapid transformation in galactic history. Human architect ships spread throughout civilized space carrying the biomechanical conversion technology. Worlds that had been rigid and controlled for millennia began to bloom with new possibilities. Species that had been enemies for centuries discovered they could work together when they shared the same living networks. Dr. Mi-Young Park, now elderly, but still brilliant, oversaw the integration of thousands of different species into the growing biomechanical consciousness. Every species brings something unique, she explained to the reformed Galactic Council. The Vorthak brings strength and determination. The Luminari bring insight and wisdom. Humans bring adaptability and hope. Together, we are stronger than any of us could be alone. But the real miracle was the children. On every world where the biomechanical networks took root, children of different species began to understand each other in ways their parents never could. They played together, learned together, and dreamed together of a galaxy where cooperation replaced competition. When the Devourers finally reached the first inhabited systems, they found something they had never encountered before. Instead of scattered, frightened civilizations fighting each other, they faced a united galaxy connected by living networks that spanned space itself. The battle was fierce but brief. The Devourers consumed matter and energy, but they could not consume the connections between minds and hearts. The biomechanical networks adapted faster than the Devourers could attack. Planets that were consumed were regrown within days. Ships that were destroyed were rebuilt within hours. They feed on isolation and fear, K1 observed as the Devourers retreated into the dark between galaxies. But we no longer have isolation or fear. We have each other. Years later, engineer Taemin Lee sat in his garden on Hell's Gate watching his great-grandchildren play. They were a mixed group, some human, some architect, some from species that had once been enemies. But they played together with the easy joy of children who had never known a divided galaxy. Was it worth it? Asked his daughter Na-Young, now a leader of the Galactic Cooperation Council. Taemin smiled as he watched a human child and a young Vorthak building something amazing together out of living crystal. Every moment of exile, every year of struggle, every fear we faced. Yes, it was worth it. Above them, ships from 1,000 worlds moved through the space around Hell's Gate. The planet that had once been a prison had become the heart of a new civilization. A civilization built not on the conquest of the strong over the weak, but on the cooperation of all life in the galaxy. And in the deep chambers beneath the planet, ancient architect computers recorded a simple message. Mission completed. The galaxy lives. The children have learned to fly. Commander Daeho Kim, now an old man with silver hair, stood on his balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Devourers waited in the darkness between galaxies. Someday they might return. But when they did, they would find a galaxy united by bonds stronger than metal and deeper than space itself. The exiled had become the liberators, the prisoners had become the teachers, and the dead world had become the birthplace of a living galaxy,